You might feel too advanced for beginner videos, but completely lost when you try to build anything yourself. And that feeling is not a sign that you need harder tutorials, it's a sign that you are in a trap. And let me tell you, the trap you're in right now, it's something I fell for myself. I wasted years and years and years in this tutorial hell before I finally learned the real way and finally released my first games. So right now you might think that you are an intermediate, even though you have never built anything yourself. You feel like you are like too advanced for beginner videos, but still you can't build anything. And you might think the solution is just to watch more intermediate and advanced tutorials. But in reality what you are is that you're just stuck in what we call tutorial hell. And that's where you're overland tutorials for your main learning. And let me tell you, I spent years stuck in tutorial hell myself before I finally learned how to actually learn game development, and that's when I finally released my first 3 games. But there are actually a reason, like a really good reason why there aren't that many intermediate or advanced scripting tutorials. And that's because those that actually are at that level, which you most likely aren't, those that actually are on this level, they know the real way to actually learn. They know that the real way to actually learn is the method that I'm going to show you later. But before we cover the method that finally made me release my first games, I'll just quickly cover the reason you fell into this trap of tutorial hell in the first place. Because it was only after I understood this that I was able to apply this method correctly. So let's go over it. This is going to help you a ton if you actually understand it. So let me just tell you quickly. What you're in right now, it's called tutorial hell, sure. And what is tutorials? Well, watching tutorials, maybe you're even following along thinking that's like productive. Tutorials is still what we call passive learning. You can think of the last time you watched a tutorial. Did you use like more than 10% of your brain? Did you actually think? Did you solve any problems while actually doing it? Did you actually understand anything in the tutorial? No, you didn't. You might even say on this understand point that, yeah, I understood the thing. But that's because passive learning, like tutorials, what it gives us is the recognition about the thing, but it doesn't give us the understanding. These are two completely different things in learning. If you actually got the understanding about something, you would be able to use it practically. And to actually get the understanding in the first place, we need to use it practically. We can't just watch something and then understand a thing, use it practically. We actually only learn how to use things like in the real world by actually like doing it in the real world, by actually struggling with the thing and finding out ourselves. But the thing with game development especially, it's not like learning languages where like, okay, this is wrong, this is right, you need to write this way, like this is this word, just remembering. Game development, it's so like dynamic, it's so vague, it's so like, it's 1 million trillion different possibilities and possible games that the only way to learn is to actively struggle. Things need to be hard for us to actually remember it and understand a thing. It needs to be hard. That's why you fell into tutorial hell in the first place. You got this recognition about something, so you feel like you understand anything, as well as it was very easy for you to just not think at all, not solve any problems, not like struggle with the thing itself. You just watch, you typed it on your own screen. It felt very fun and like good because like you did something that was very advanced, and you felt like you were progressing because you like followed along on your own screen and like made the project. Sure, it feels fun. Sure, it feels like you did it yourself. It feels like you actually learned and understood it, everything, because the guy on YouTube just explained it and it's like at the front of your brain. But to actually get something like in your long-term memory, to actually understand a thing, we need to struggle. And that's like the opposite of what you've done, like your entire game development learning journey. Before we go over the method that actually makes you learn game development and made me finally release my first games, I just want to quickly say that this section is going to be taken directly from my program Smartini. These are just going to be the most important things. So if you want the entire process, like basically this entire video stretch out for like 2 hours where I'll cover everything from like getting game ideas, planning your games, and all the possible mistakes that you can make throughout your journey. So if you want access to every single thing about that and make the journey 10 times easier, then you can join Smartini with the first link in the description. But either way, I'm going to tell you the most important things so you can get started straight away. So to learn game development, we can't do passive learning. Sure, we need to struggle with the thing. Sure, we'll learn that now. So with these two principles in mind, I made what I call the struggle, build, repeat framework. And now we know what the struggle means. Now we need to know what the build means. So let's go over how you can actually use this framework to finally release your first game and learn game development the right way. The first thing I wanted to do is just pick one simple mechanic from something that you remember from the hours of tutorials that you have watched. It can be whatever, it can be like just a few lines of code. It doesn't need to be big, it just needs to like do something, like something visual in the game engine that you can tweak and experiment with, whatever it might be. And since you are like thinking about being an intermediate, I assume that you are going to have some like at least a few lines of code that you can remember. But a lot of you guys watching maybe aren't like actually intermediates at all, so you cannot remember anything. In that case, I was exactly like you, I'm going to be honest. But what you are going to do in that case is just go on Google, search for like a simple jumping mechanic, and then just paste the code. So either if you have like some lines of code that you remember, or you paste in a jumping mechanic from Google, everyone should be on the same page now. What I want you to do with the lines of code that you have inside of your IDE right now is going to be to just struggle, break, and tweak things around these lines of code. So just experiment, try to expand on it in the most natural way, try to break it, like do different things. See what happens when you change this parameter, what happens when you change this value, what happens when you like change the name to this, what happens when you write this new line of code that you might think does this thing. Just try to guess, experiment, and just struggle with the thing. This should be hard, but it's also going to be quite fun because you're like seeing the new results and you're like discovering new things and you're finally learning. So this should be fun, but it should also be quite hard for you. And when things are hard, that's when we actually learn. So just keep that in mind throughout your entire learning journey. Obviously, we need new information. So when are we going to seek new information and how are we going to do it, you might ask. This is very important that you understand and you follow. So listen closely. What we need to do is that we first need to struggle with something for around 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the difficulty of the task and the size. After you've tried to experiment and like did these things for 10 to 20 minutes, you tried it yourself, you guessed your way through the solution, but you couldn't quite figure it out. Then you can search for and Google, don't use AI, don't use tutorials. You can Google the specific line of code that you wanted to implement. So it shouldn't be like a big, how to make this entire movement system. Don't search for things like that. Search for like how to move the player, like one specific line at a time. Because if you try to like implement and learn like an entire script at once, you aren't going to remember it. Our brain can only like remember so much information at the same time. So the important thing here is that you just Google and guess your way through specific things. Don't like have a goal to make like this entire movement system this time. Just have it your goal to just move the player. Just one line of code. And then when you do this for like a few times, just expand on it in the most natural way. So for example, if you made this jumping system that I talked about, for example, then right now the player might just jump continuously. Try to implement like a check for when the player is like hitting the ground so that you don't jump in the air. Try to implement like input into the game and try to just, expand on it in the most natural way. Then you can do this for like a few days, maybe a few weeks, depending on like how much time you have, obviously. And then you should just do this until you're able to make your first complete system. And then you just make a new project and then you make like a system that you can make, like a small prototype. And I promise you, if you just do this, you're going to escape tutorial hell. You're going to release your first game within a short period of time. In Smartini, I promise that you're going to release it within 60 days. If not, I'll also coach you for free. So it's going to take all the risk away from you. So if you just want to make the journey 10 times easier, then it's the first link in the description. Join Smartini today. Either way, thank you so much for watching this video.